reacting to Sarah Boone testifying on her own behalf in her murder trial. And as a reminder, Sarah Boone is the one who called 911, said that she put her boyfriend into a suitcase and zipped him up in there during a drunken game of hide and seek. And then she went upstairs to bed, came back 12 hours later, and he was dead in her suitcase. And now, I guess I can add that she's actually been convicted of second-degree murder. So that's kind of, I don't have to worry about saying the word allegedly anymore, since she's been convicted. Anyway, we're just going to be reacting to her testimony, especially to how much it's changed 4.5 years later after the what do you call it? The incident? The crime? I think the crime, yeah. 4.5 years after her crime of killing her boyfriend in a suitcase, suffocating him to death, she has drastically changed her story. And I've been really wanting someone to react to it. So I thought, well, why not me and you guys will react to it together. So let's get started. This is part 1. We'll do about 40 minutes each.
Raise your hands to confirm
Oops.
that you complied with the court's instructions during the break. Record reflect all hands have been raised. With that, state has rested. The defense is going to put on a case. Defense, Mr. Owens, you can call your first witness.
The defense would call Sarah Boone.
Please be swear or affirm the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, ma'am, you could take a seat. And if you could, state and spell your name for the record for us.
Sarah Boone, 101077.
And could you spell your name?
SARAHEOONE.
All right, thank you very much. Sir, you may inquire.
Ms. Boone, would you please tell the jury where you were born and raised?
Atlanta, Georgia.
You were born in Atlanta?
I was born in Atlanta.
And how long did you stay in Atlanta?
Oh, shoot. I kind of paused it too soon, but here we are. Like, the very first question, she's going to lie. So her attorney asked her, can you tell us where you were born and raised? And she said Atlanta, Georgia. And then she's going to go on to say, yeah, I lived there till I was 3, and then my family moved to Orlando, Florida. And so how was she raised there if she only lived there until she was 3 years old? I mean, my goodness. Very first question, you're going to lie?
Before you moved here to Florida?
I was 3 years old, 3 or 4.
Okay. And from that time, y'all moved, you and your family, your mother and father, moved to Orlando?
And my grandparents.
Okay. Y'all all moved down from Atlanta down to Orlando?
Yes, and my 2 brothers.
Okay. And were you raised here essentially from that time on?
Yes.
And you resided here in Orange County, Florida that entire time?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you go to high school here locally?
I did.
Where did you go to high school?
Edgewater.
Okay. And tell the jury, how old were you when you graduated?
I was 18 years old.
Now, I know you lost your mother and father.
Overruled.
I know you lost your mother and father in your teens and in your 20s. Is that true?
I lost my grandfather when I was a sophomore in high school, and I lost my father when I was a senior. And then my mother passed away a few years after that, and then my grandmother passed away after my mother died.
All right, so you were in your 20s when all that was going on?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point in your 20s, you met Brian Boone?
I did, yes.
All right. And how long did y'all date before you married?
A good handful of years. I helped my family with paying mortgage and...
Okay, here we go again. I mean, how many minutes are we into this? Oh, only 4 minutes into this, and I think most of it's been me blabbing, but, you know, she cannot answer questions straightforward. So he asked her, how many years did you date before you're married? And she's just going off on, Oh, well, I was a hero to my family during this time. And I worked and helped to pay the mortgage. And, she just was asked a simple question: how many years did you date before marriage? And she just has to go on this tangent of, oh, let me tell you what a hero I am.
Bills for the house since my father had passed away and my grandfather, so...
Actually, let me rewind that. 444.
Your affirmative testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, ma'am, you could take a seat. And if you could, state and spell your name for the record for us.
Sarah Boone, 101077.
And could you spell your name?
SARAHEOONE.
All right, thank you very much. Sir, you may inquire.
Ms. Boone, would you please tell the jury where you were born and raised?
Atlanta, Georgia.
You were born in Atlanta?
Born in Atlanta.
And how long did you stay in Atlanta before you moved here to Florida?
I was 3 years old, 3 or 4.
Okay. And from that time, y'all moved, you and your family, your mother and father, moved to Orlando?
And my grandparents.
Okay. Y'all all moved down from Atlanta down to Orlando?
Yes, and my 2 brothers.
Okay. And were you raised here essentially from that time on?
Yes.
And you resided here in Orange County, Florida that entire time?
Yes.
Okay. And did you go to high school here locally?
I did.
Where did you go to high school?
Edgewater.
Okay. And tell the jury, how old were you when you graduated?
I was 18 years old.
Now, I know you lost your mother and father.
Overruled.
I know you lost your mother and father in your teens and in your 20s. Is that true?
I lost my grandfather when I was a sophomore in high school, and I lost my father when I was a senior. And then my mother passed away a few years after that, and then my grandmother passed away after my mother died.
All right, so you were in your 20s when all that was going on?
Yes.
Okay, does anyone else notice how cold she is when she's telling the story? I mean, you can't even show any emotion for your own family. And I know I've said this before, but I always get curious, or suspicious is the word, when someone who is a murderer, their family died young. I want to know what happened. Like, how did her family die prematurely? And plus, it doesn't help me much that her brother is also a criminal, and he's in jail. So I'm very suspicious of her family's deaths. I want to know. If anyone knows what happened to her family, please comment and let me know. But this is just cold. She's got no emotion for her parents and her grandparents dying, all within just a couple of years of each other. She just tells it like, oh yeah, this is what I had for breakfast.
Okay. And then at some point in your 20s, you met Brian Boone?
I did, yes.
All right. And how long did y'all date before you married?
A good handful of years. I helped my family with paying mortgage and bills for the house since my father had passed away and my grandfather. So
you worked outside the home?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell the jury when you said you and Brian Boone dated for a while? Do you remember when y'all married?
I do.
Could you tell the jury when y'all were married?
The year?
Yeah. Do you remember the date?
It happened to be, yes, that after my mother passed away, that he had waited to ask me to marry him because he knew it would be,
Sustained.
That's so crazy. She just refuses to answer a question directly. She's just too defiant. You know, she's got this defiance disorder and all kinds of disorders going on with herself. She's asked a simple question. What year did you get married? Oh, well, this happened and that happened, and let me tell you about how great I am first.
Just answer the question if you can, Miss Boone. Are you a little bit nervous?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, just tell the jury if you remember the date that you and Brian Boone married.
August 21st, 2004.
Okay. And had y'all lived with each other for a short time before that?
Short time.
Yes. Okay. After you married, how long was it before y'all had any children?
Gosh, 6 years?
Okay. And y'all have one son.
Yes.
What's his name?
Lucas.
And how old is Lucas now?
Lucas will be 14 years old on the 28th.
28th of this month?
Yes.
Okay, I don't like it when people tell the date by just one day of all the dates. So, I actually don't remember what she said now, but I think she said the 28th of this month. Oh, shoot, it's going to bug me if I don't go back. So, I'm going to clear that up. So, this month is October. So, he's going to be, I think she said 14. October 28th of 2024, he'll be 14. Let me rewind it just to make sure. So, 446.
Okay. Well, just tell the jury if you remember the date that you and Brian Boone married.
August 21st, 2004.
Okay. And had y'all lived with each other for a short time before that?
Short time.
Yes. Okay. After you married, how long was it before y'all had any children?
Gosh, 6 years?
Okay. And y'all have one son.
Yes.
What's his name?
Lucas.
And how old is Lucas now?
Lucas will be 14 years old on the 28th.
28th of this month?
Yes.
Okay. So you and Brian were married, and y'all lived in Orange County. How long were y'all married?
For 13 years.
Right, and y'all divorced?
Yes.
And as part of the divorce, were y'all to share custody of your son?
Yes.
And so y'all would split days? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. At some time after you and Brian split up, did you meet Jorge Torres?
Yes.
All right, could you tell the jury how you met Jorge Torres?
I met George when I decided to buck up, I guess, and was tired of trying to patch things up with my ex-husband. And I decided to go one day for a walk across the street and go have a beer by myself and sit and people watch just to get out of my house and a change of scenery.
All right, now,
I love it when I freeze, pause on her face. She's always glaring at her attorney. Okay, so I wanted to point this part out. She said that, I met George when I decided to buck up because I was tired of trying to work things out with my husband, and I just walked across the street after I bucked up, and then I just decided to do some people watching at the bar while I had a beer by myself, and that's where I met George. And then she goes on to say that she met him at the bar, and they had a mutual friend that worked there. So if she just randomly went there one day out of the blue, how would she have a friend that works at the bar? And her ex-husband, Brian Boone, has already said that she went to the bar across the street on a regular basis. So it wasn't like she just suddenly decided to walk over there and boom, she ran into George. No, she was going there for years. Okay, let's get on with her lies.
is this your apartment?
No, this is the marital home.
Okay. Where is that marital home?
Winter Park?
You're no longer living in that marital home?
No.
Who lives in the marital home?
No one. It has been sold.
Okay. So you met Jorge Torres before you got the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And you met him at a bar across the street from the marital home?
Yes, we had a mutual friend there.
Were you introduced?
Yes.
All right. How did you and George get along when y'all first met?
Very well. It was strange how quickly we hit things off and had so much in common, and he would be interested in someone like me, and I just couldn't believe that he was actually interested in me and said a lot of nice things. And 1 hour ended up being 4 hours from when we had first met, and then we would always have something to talk about.
Why couldn't you believe that he would be interested in you?
He was very handsome. He was very funny. He was smart, and I would show up in workout clothes and disheveled hair, and I guess I kind of felt broken from being in the process of the divorce that he knew about. But then one of the things that we could relate also was the fact that he was here in Florida because he had just been divorced from his second wife. So that was another topic that he and I could compare notes on.
So eventually the divorce was settled. Did you get your own place?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that after you... At first you lived in your parents' home, correct?
Yes, until I was married.
And then you moved directly in with Brian.
Yes.
And then y'all lived in the marital home, correct?
Yes.
And then you got this apartment.
Yes.
So that was the first time in your life that you actually had your own place.
Yes.
And what was the address?
4748 France Court, apartment number 3.
And what city is that in?
It's in Winter Park.
How far is that from here?
20 minutes.
Okay. So you got that apartment, and initially were you by yourself?
No.
All right, tell the jury.
In the almost year, about 10 months of separation from Brian, my ex-husband, that is the time when I met George, and my ex.
Okay, well, that conflicts with what Brian Boone says, that they were together when she met George and started cheating on Brian with George. And then according to Sarah's neighbor, I can't remember his name. It's not Benny or Brandon or Abraham, but it's one that lived further down that he gave her a microwave or something like that. And he was also a former drug addict. I can't remember his name, but according to him, about the whole first year that Sarah lived in the apartment after she moved out of the marital home with Brian Boone, Brian was there almost every day, and he said that George was not there. So I don't think that George moved in with Sarah into her apartment for quite a while after she got separated from Brian. It seems like I had something else to say about that, but it's escaping my mind right now.
Was trying to buy me out or force me out of our marital home, and I needed to find somewhere to live. And
so did you and George agree to rent the apartment?
Yes, I needed extra income. We could not afford it just on my own.
You were receiving some income from the marriage settlement, were you not?
Yes.
So you did have a consistent monthly income coming in from the marriage settlement?
For the most part, yes.
But you needed more to live.
Yes, to pay the bills and for rent.
So did you and George have some agreement?
We did.
All right, what was the agreement?
The agreement was that if I decided for he and I to live with one another, because it would be under my name, that he would help with the monthly bills and on a regular basis, where it wouldn't be something that I would have to argue with him about. It would just be an automatic. Make sure that everything's paid first, and then from there, hopefully have some fun with it.
Okay. So I understand from that point on, would it be fair to say that y'all saw each other on and off for about...
Okay, so to me that story is pretty important because it kind of gives you an insight as to her mindset. So she said that she agreed to let George live with her, and then they were going to split the cost of the apartment because she couldn't afford it on her own. But she had a regular monthly income from alimony and child support. And so then George was going to, I guess, pay for half of the bills or whatever. But nowhere in here does she mention her being responsible and getting herself a job and paying for her own living expenses. It's like it doesn't even enter her mind that she should do that. You know, she just expects Brian and George to pay for her to live. And she doesn't even have her child full time.
Next 3.5 years.
No, I would consider us a couple. At some point, he asked me to marry him.
Okay. But y'all did have times where he left and went to live with his parents.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
And there were times where there was an understanding that y'all were going to break up.
Okay, I'm going to rewind this part because I kind of was talking through that beginning of the story. Why she got her eyes closed or almost closed, and every time I pause it. But anyway, so her attorney was saying, you know, you and George had an on-again, off-again relationship, right? And she goes, oh no, I considered us to be a couple. And then he goes on to say, well, you agree that he moved in with his parents a few times, and you all talked about breaking up many times or whatever. And she goes, oh yeah, we did that many times. And so he goes on to say, well, wouldn't that be on again, off again? Oh yeah, what about it? You know, and she acts like she didn't even just say that they were not on again, off again. And he doesn't even mention what about all the time that he was spent in jail. You know, they weren't together then when she put him in jail. Let me rewind. 451.
So you did have a consistent monthly income coming in from the marriage settlement,
For the most part, yes.
but you needed more to live.
Yes, to pay the bills and for rent.
So did you and George have some agreement?
We did.
All right, what was the agreement?
The agreement was that if I decided for he and I to live with one another, because it would be under my name, that he would help with the monthly bills and on a regular basis, where it wouldn't be something that I would have to argue with him about. It would just be an automatic. Make sure that everything's paid first, and then from there, hopefully have some fun with it.
Okay. So I understand from that point on, would it be fair to say that y'all saw each other on and off for about the next 3.5 years?
No, I would consider us a couple. At some point, he asked me to marry him.
Okay. But y'all did have times where he left and went to live with his parents.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
And there were times where there was an understanding that y'all were going to break up.
Multiple times.
Okay. All right. So, again, on again, off again.
Yes. This was actually before we had our apartment. That was, I guess, our dating phase.
Okay.
Wow. Look at this face. Okay, so what kind of sense does this make? She says that he left their home, their apartment, and moved in with his parents multiple times. And then she says, you know, what's this, like just seconds later? Oh, well, that happened before we actually lived together. That happened back when we were just dating. Well, she moved straight from her marital home with Brian Boone to this apartment. So there was no time that George could have left her in their dating phase because they weren't living together. Oh, you know, and it just makes me think about, somebody says that the truth makes sense and lies don't. So I think that she's definitely lying here. He did not leave her before she got this apartment because they weren't living together. She was living with her husband. She's frustrating me.
Y'all were together for 3.5 years. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And y'all had actually...
And no one questions her on this. You know, she has proven to be a liar in so many, just about everything that she says is a lie. But no one questions her when she says they were together for 3.5 years. No one except for me, that is. Because the earliest documentation or proof that we can find that they were together was October of 2017, when George posted on Facebook that he was no longer single, that he had found the love of his life, whatever, some mushy stuff like that. And then we know that he lost his life on February 23rd, 2020. So if you count up that time, that's about 2 years and, let's see, October, November, December, January, February. 2 years and 5 months that they could have been together. Okay, so 2 years and 5 months, and then she didn't move into her apartment until February 2018. Okay, so that would be right. 2 years and 5 months that they could have been together, but they weren't together that whole 2 years and 5 months because he lived with his parents. He was in and out of jail. So it was just over 2 years. It wasn't 3.5 years, and I don't know why. I hate for people to quote her on that. I really want someone to say, well, you know, what proof do you have when you got together? Because we got proof that you didn't move into this apartment and leave your husband until 2018. And he died in the beginning of 2020.
Agreed to marry?
He had asked me yes a couple of times to marry him, and one time I agreed to yes.
Okay. Now, I want to get directly to the date of this event so that the jury can hear your testimony. All right. So tell us, I believe the date is February the 23rd of 2020. Explain to the jury that whole day, from the time y'all got up, the whole thing.
Approach.
Okay, this part, while they're being quiet, I want to point out that, okay, let me pause it because that static's kind of loud. When Sarah is looking in this direction, this is where her defense team sits in front of her. Now, when she looks over in this direction over here, that's where George's family is sitting, and also they're sitting behind the prosecution table. So when she looks that way, she doesn't look happy. But when she looks this way, she's kind of trying to not smile. And someone said that her jailhouse girlfriend was sitting behind her defense team. So in this direction over here, I believe her girlfriend from Orange County Jail that's since been released, is no longer in jail, that she's actually at Sarah's trial. And that's who Sarah is actually smiling at. I don't know for sure, but that's just what people that were in the courtroom were saying. But just kind of watch her when she looks this direction versus when she looks that direction. It's a whole different look on her face. She looks so happy. Does anyone else remember in all those interviews how she told police that she's so scared for her life, because George's family was going to kill her. Now look, a lot of his family's in the courtroom, and she does not look afraid at all. You know, she's just busted more lies to me. She was never afraid of them.
Objection's overruled for now.
Now, Ms. Boone, let's just, instead of one long speech, let me break you up over the course of the day. So, do you remember the date of February 23rd, 2020?
Yes.
Do you remember getting up?
Yes.
All right, just tell the jury about that morning. What y'all did that morning. What you and George spent the night together at the apartment.
Yes, at that point he was living there.
Yes. So y'all slept in the bed together, upstairs, February. So y'all had gotten up that morning, February 23rd of 2020.
Yes.
All right, tell the jury what happened when y'all got up.
He was already downstairs, and I went downstairs, and he wanted to start the day off by drinking because it was a day off from his job. And I talked him into cleaning and tidying up the house for a sense of accomplishment.
Okay, so she says here that he wanted to start drinking because it was the day off from his job, but so many times she said that he didn't have a job, that he didn't work. That's why he was always searching for jobs on her computer, on her laptop. I think she does come back later and change it to, well, he had a job, but it was basically a crap job. It wasn't reliable, or he didn't make enough money, something like that. But yeah, she goes back and forth. He had a job, but he didn't have a job. You see why I was confused about it. I've said that on, I think, every video. Like, did he have a job or not? So here she's saying that he had the day off, so he wanted to drink. Actually, let me rewind that, because she's in the middle of the story. 4:54.
Objection's overruled for now.
Now, Ms. Boone, let's just, instead of one long speech, let me break you up over the course of the day. So, do you remember the date of February 23rd, 2020?
Yes.
Do you remember getting up?
Yes.
All right, just tell the jury about that morning. What y'all did that morning. What you and George spent the night together at the apartment.
Yes, at that point he was living there.
Yes. So y'all slept in the bed together, upstairs, February. So y'all had gotten up that morning, February 23rd of 2020.
Yes.
All right, tell the jury what happened when y'all got up.
He was already downstairs, and I went downstairs, and he wanted to start the day off by drinking because it was a day off from his job. And I talked him into cleaning and tidying up the house for a sense of accomplishment. So that is what we did for however long that it took. So we did tidy up the house and got everything in order, and it was kind of a reward, I guess, to be able to sit and enjoy ourselves and sit on the back porch.
All right, what do you mean by cleaning up the house? What did y'all do?
We swept and mopped. We folded some of the laundry. I know that we did the dishes, emptied the dishwasher, just general run-of-the-mill tidying up.
And did you have your son coming the next day?
Yes, that was one of the reasons why we were able to do that.
What was the arrangement you had in terms of the next day would have been your day to pick up your son from school?
Yes.
What time would you pick Lucas up from school the next day?
I believe his school ended at 3 o'clock.
Okay. So you would have been responsible to pick him up, and he would be spending the night with you that night?
Yes.
So you wanted to have the house nice and clean?
Yes.
How many bedrooms are in the home?
2.
And you and George had one bedroom?
Yes.
And who had the other?
Lucas.
All right. Is that exclusively his bedroom?
Yes.
All right. So how long would it have taken y'all that morning to clean?
I don't really remember what time we woke up, but maybe a good 2, maybe 3 hours.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you and George both smoked cigarettes?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that you and George both drink alcohol?
Yes.
All right. So at some point, y'all finished your chores, right? And then y'all were going to enjoy the day.
Yes.
All right. What was the plan?
It was just kind of, we've got the day to ourselves. Let's just kind of relax and go with.
Oh no, is it another commercial? Let me see. I hate it when it does this. It seems like it does this every video now. What's going on? Got a good signal. Okay, while we're waiting on that one to be figured out, let's go over here and get a nice little reminder. Sarah calling 911. Now, when she's on the stand testifying for her, and she's being questioned by her own attorney, it's amazing. She can remember every little detail. But when the prosecutor or the state's attorney gets up and questions her, she can't remember a thing. It's amazing how quickly she shifts. Here's her 911 call. Okay, well, it's not going to play that either. This may be a good stopping point since the internet is acting up. Okay, well, we're at 37 minutes anyway, and I was going to stop at 40. So we'll just pick it up here next time once we're no longer having technical difficulties. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm really gonna, I kind of want to make a single video on one story that she tells about George stabbing her with a knife in her leg. I kind of could make a whole video on that one alone, but I'm not sure about that. And I also want to make a video on one of her witnesses. I think the lady was 85 years old that lived in the same apartment complex, and she had to come in a wheelchair and, tried to testify on Sarah's behalf. And to me, that was like more elder abuse. I mean, it was just kind of sad to watch, and no one's really talking about it. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that. What do you think about this neighbor of hers? I think her name was Pearl, the 85-year-old neighbor. She couldn't even hear what was being said in the same courtroom, but she claimed that she could always tell when Sarah was getting abused by George because Sarah's dogs would be barking, however many apartments away from her. She could hear the dogs bark. And Sarah even testified that one dog didn't bark. It was only one dog that barked, and that was only sometimes. So this lady only heard one dog barking. All right, well, I guess this will be the end of the video, and we'll just pick it up back here on part 2. All right. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about her testifying. I mean, another big difference between her attorney questioning her and the state's attorney questioning her is her blink rate. With her attorney, she's pretty calm. But when the other attorney gets up, the state's attorney gets up and questions her, then she just blinks like crazy. And I try to match it, and blink as much as she did. And I kind of felt woozy, kind of made me feel motion sickness or something. It was strange. Okay, well, that's the end of the video.